Welcome to this week's episode of Marijuana Mind. This is a special episode because I am actually broadcasting from Tokyo, and we have a special guest. I don't want to take anything away from.
We have a guest every week. It's a big deal. You're in Tokyo.
And my geisha-ness co-host, Cynthia Brewer.
I am pale, and I love wearing slide shoes with socks. So yes, I'll take it.
So this is not a fake background that you see. I'm actually awkwardly sitting outside of my hotel because I need Wi-Fi really to do this properly. And so I didn't want to be too far away from my hotel, but it's probably very embarrassing for them that I'm out here on the street broadcasting. But I wanted to see the Tokyo background. And
I thought it was fake.
Yeah, it looks fake, doesn't it? But it's real.
It does.
You'll probably see people passing by.
I do. I saw a person with a backpack and I'm like, wow, he's really in Tokyo because everything stereotypical is happening. So
yeah, so Ohayo, konnichiwa.
Yeah, we did meet the manager of the hotel just a second ago. That was not on air. And he came out to politely tell Justin, do you want to come inside and stop embarrassing the hotel? But Justin politely declined and said, this is for the money shot. And so that's where we are right now. We are broadcasting live from Tokyo at 6:30 in the morning.
That's right. 6:30 in the morning here. It's 13 hours difference from East Coast of America.
So instead of recording at 3:30 in the afternoon, it's 6:30 in a.m. for Justin, 5:30 for me and our wonderful guest. Today we have Abraham Villegas. We were talking about how much I was going to butcher his last name. He is the founder and partner at the Cannabis Community.org, based in Chicago, Illinois, which is amazing because that's where Ty is also based out of, who is our amazing social media / talent acquisition, all of the wonderful things. Running a curated educational and informational consumer-focused content about the cannabis industry, and including recipes, clothing, info, regulations. And I'm going to tell you, Abraham, I looked at this site and I was trying to get an idea of what it was. And I love the idea behind it. But you know what I really love? I love the Cannabis Border Collie tumbler. That's what I need. Yeah, you're muted.
That's a popular one in our shop for sure.
I love it. I also love the Advocate collection.
That one's our one of our best sellers as well.
I love dogs, and so does Justin. We own combined, like I own 2 hound dogs and he owns now 2 poodles, right? You didn't get a third one, Justin.
2 poodles, and my assistant got a little poodle as well.
Oh my gosh, that's too many poodles. But
it's like 101 Dalmatians with poodles.
101
never enough poodles.
I'm sorry, but I just they're adorable when they're puppies. And then they get bigger and they get really big. And poodle giant dogs are very like intimidating to me, especially when they're named such adorable names.
But they're calm and they're friendly and they're beautiful. So it's not like having like 20 Jack Russell Terriers.
Oh yeah, around. That would be more annoying. Or like a half a dozen Chihuahuas.
Oh yeah.
Like a gaggle of Chihuahuas. That would be annoying. I always think it's funny when guys have little dogs and they're perfectly fine with that, because they got it from a girl and just ended up getting custody of it. But I don't know a single man that goes out and buys a tiny dog.
There's a lot of gay men that do, actually.
Well, that's different. That's different. Okay. So Abraham, tell us a little bit more about cannabiscommunity.org. How you came up with this idea. It's been 8 years since the brainchild was born. Tell us about it.
It has been quite a while. In short and most simply said, we help people learn about cannabis. We help them get a card. We help them learn how to cook and bake with recipes and even how to grow their own. And in the process, to help people show their pride and advocacy for cannabis, we created a merch shop that has t-shirts, hats, hoodies, and other apparel that people can use to sport their pride for their favorite plant.
That's amazing. I really do. I think the merch side is the first time I've ever seen a cannabis brand that wasn't associated with a company. It was like, you've got a line for like mothers, and you've got one for like what was it? I'm not high, I'm healthy, or something along those lines.
Yep. I'm not high, I'm well.
Yeah. Okay. You have something for everybody, like every type of style, don't you?
We sure do. What we ended up doing was through our actual community of people, we've got over 30,000 members across 5 different states now. And it is them who have given us the ideas and inspiration for the different types of designs that we end up creating. It's because of them that we even offer the merch in the first place. We started off as a Facebook group, interestingly enough, just helping people learn about cannabis in a Q&A format back and forth. What we didn't expect was for that group to go from just a couple hundred members to tens of thousands of people in a very short time. And for us, trying to accommodate that growth, we had to quickly figure out a system to be able to help people at scale, which wasn't something that we were previously used to doing. And so it became a race of how do we best accommodate with the growth of curiosity that we've seen people have in cannabis, from when you first couldn't talk about it in public, then you had to send secret signals to your friends if they wanted to go outside and smoke, to now it's mainstream, it is everywhere. Advertising channels for this type of product are opening up. And sure enough, the stigma is slowly but surely starting to dissuade. However, as everybody always knows, there's always more work to do. We've got a lot more progress to go. And this is a space where things take a lot of time. And so it requires a lot of dedicated and passionate individuals to help push it forward.
And I still use hand signals with my friends to talk about weed. Just saying.
Same.
Just want to throw that in there. Justin, go ahead.
What do you think is the secret of your success? I mean, because there's a lot of groups you can find nowadays, although you did start 8 years ago, but still that talk about cannabis. Why are you guys so successful? What's the secret sauce?
I think what we have always done and continue to do, which is one thing that a lot of other companies tend to not do, is focus on your end user and your consumer first and last, whereas most companies tend to focus on the consumer at first, and then as they grow, they get really big, they take public investments, then they have shareholders to be accountable to, whereas on our side, we're private, we're self-funded, we're independent, and that allows us the ability and creativity to allow a natural, organic community to grow and thrive, which is hard to do when it's owned by a corporation or somebody else that they don't feel safe or able to trust with all of the conversations that they share in our groups.
That's actually a really interesting point, because what you're doing is you're providing answers to the questions that everybody's going to have in every adult use or medical market. Am I allowed to bring it on an airplane? Like things like that. You can ask an MSO, you can ask a regulator, but nobody really wants to commit to an answer. Also, like you're based out of Illinois, so most of your focus is about companies and locations in the Chicago and Illinois area, right? Because I put my address in, and the only company that came up I already work with, which is kind of cool. Yeah, it's Tim Gunther's I Love Compliance, and he also owns the email I Hate Compliance. So, and that was the only company that came in a radius to my house, but I thought that was kind of cool.
That is awesome. I go back with Tim for a little bit.
Yeah.
It's interesting the way that it has grown and evolved. We have just tried to help people in as many different ways as possible. We grew reactively. We didn't have events, we didn't have contents, we didn't have all of those things, but to be able to create them in real time was an exciting opportunity. And interestingly, like just the wind of that momentum is what took us into multiple states. And so even though we started off as a local group for Illinois, very quickly we expanded into Maryland, Pennsylvania, New York, and now Missouri. And like you said, we're basically documenting the experience of legalizing cannabis, all the way from medical to recreational, to when a lot of these companies have become MSOs and have IPO'd, like all of the firsts that have never happened, we've been able to see an experience together in a community, which I think is what makes it truly exciting.
Where do you get your content from?
The people themselves, all of the comments, all of the threads, all of the conversations that people have provides us with a library and wealth of questions that we then either enter that into our system and create an article, a recipe, or a guide based off that, or we enter those keywords into some of the other tools that we use so that it can give us answers to other questions that people might be asking. And so we preemptively imagine what that customer journey is and then create content in advance to be able to cater to those needs, so that as people's information interest develops and evolves and grows, we're able to provide them with that next stage of information that they're more likely to be looking for.
And are people mostly getting the information, the answers from your team, or is it more of a Reddit style where it's like a back and forth between the consumers?
At first, it was just me. It was just me talking to my Facebook wall for weeks. And then I brought on a couple admins and they helped create the engagement, post topics, create conversations. And over time, people started to get more comfortable making posts themselves, asking questions, sharing their experiences. And now it's an autonomous community that doesn't actually even need me these days. So I pop in now and just like make sure that everything's okay. There's no spam or content we need to remove, but people communicate there with each other without needing me to moderate those conversations, which is fantastic, because then that allows me to go and do other things that create more awareness for our group, our organization, and the things that we do.
Yeah, you've had a lot of experience in the cannabis space in different facets. Like you continue to work with Normal, right? You've worked for an MSO like Cresco. You're obviously an entrepreneur and a founder of this, advocacy activist, whatever you want to say, community outreach forum. And then it seems like you've kind of been destined to be, one of those lifers in the cannabis space. Does that seem about right?
It's a good way to describe it. Cannabis for me for a long time has been a part of a lifestyle. And so it's easy to embed that into all of the things that I've done professionally. And it has allowed me to express my labor of love in many creative ways that allowed me to do things I like, do things I'm good at, and do things that I can get paid to do, which is kind of the trifecta.
Nuts? That's nuts. You get paid to work in weed. We make money off of the industry it's sometimes you have to kind of pinch yourself. Justin, how are the streets of Tokyo?
It's not bustling yet, although I'm on a side street and I can see down where the streets are busy and there's a lot of cars actually whizzing by.
I am so nervous for you right now that you're about to get hit by a scooter. I don't know. I've never been to Tokyo. I just imagine it in my head. So one thing that I noticed on your profile is that you have a business directory. Do companies pay to be a part of that directory?
They do. So for the directory, what we typically do, depending on the businesses, we have a lot of dispensaries on there. But admittedly, that's actually not our niche, ironically enough, even though we help people find dispensaries near them. Where we have found more of a success in our focus has been ancillary companies. So good. Think of like PR, construction, point of sale, software as a
real
service,
estate,
attorneys, nailed it. All of the other service providers, right, that exist that support the cannabis industry. Where do you find marketing agencies or accountants or other types of businesses? And so those types of companies need a lot of help. There's not really websites or directories where you can have that type of information. And so we've done our part to kind of try and fill that gap, starting with the companies that we already know and work with, and then expand that as we start to learn about new companies and vet them out and see if they're legit and great and recommended, and then see if there's opportunities to work with them if our values align.
Yeah, we've done almost 100 episodes, and most of our episode guests have been ancillary supporting companies. I think maybe a handful have been, or what, like maybe Justin, 2 or 3 have actually been MSO representatives that are kind of talking about their brand. But
I
like,
think that's where the real growth of cannabis is, right? Because you have these massive multi-million or even billion-dollar, MSOs, but they're so focused and there's so few people that really
and
are
they're
involved to
tight-lipped.
benefit from that. Mhm. Whereas it's all of the ancillary providers, that's where the real growth is, the cannabis industry.
And I bet it's helpful for them to have an outlet if they're not, or maybe they weren't, like we've had, real estate people on that are starting to expand to cannabis. We've had recruiting companies on that are expanding to cannabis. Maybe it wasn't their bread and butter, but now they want to kind of showcase, hey, we do this also, without kind of broadcasting it on their website, which might actually hurt, because there is some stigma still there. But I think anybody that listens to our show that has an ancillary cannabis company that wants to kind of get that exposure should reach out to you for sure. And tell them that you heard about it on the Marijuana Mind. So another thing I wanted to touch on is the fact that you have a very high focus in SEO. How does SEO and cannabis, how does cannabis benefit from SEO? Because that's something I think is incredibly interesting when you have a market like Florida that has only 22 licenses, or a market like Illinois that has a more robust adult use program. How does SEO benefit a cannabis company?
It comes down to visibility and accessibility. You can't access cannabis if you can't find it, and you can't find it if you're searching for it and it's not popping up on Google, which is what most of us tend to do when we're looking for anything these days.
Do they block it? Do they block content for cannabis?
The search engines do not. Social media platforms still tend to be a little bit eerie about it, but as it relates to search, organic search is a fair game. There's nothing that's essentially preventing cannabis companies from being able to get visibility on as many keywords that are related to cannabis as possible, whether that's a dispensary near me, Google search query, or whether that's like, where can I find Bubba Kush or Sour Diesel or something super specific, right? Which is like where we're headed in the world of cannabis. Cool, people know they can buy weed now. They know where to find dispensaries. They know how to get a card. They don't need a lot of those same basics or people holding their hand. What they're looking for are specific products, specific brands, particular experiences. And that's where the game of search engines has the opportunity to be able to help connect those types of searches to companies who are able to provide those products in a way where a customer can have a seamless experience.
Yeah.
In your company, oh, sorry. I was just going to ask if your company is helping to cultivate that, pun intended, that growth from that.
We sure do. That's in short, that is exactly what we focus on and specialize in doing. For the last 10 years, we've helped some of the largest companies in the cannabis space learn how to use the internet and search engines and social media to sell weed. That's been the main way that they've been able to grow their brands, their presence, their reach for customers, and all of the things that are now benefiting them by the billions.
Yeah, I mean, they have a license to print money. So like, I hope you're charging them in excess. Like, because at the end of the day, there's only a certain amount of people that can be pulled from the pool of patients to be redirected to your dispensary. I know that my our company, our CEO is like a genius at like all things online. He was able to, if you put in like test hemp or just test near me, all of a sudden Kaicha Labs was coming up all over the place. It was hilarious. But then, once the market kind of settled and there was only 22 licenses that we could work with, it wasn't really necessary. So with yours, because it's an adult use market and the competition's still there for new people, new customers every day that could be visiting from the surrounding states, SEO could be the difference between success and crickets almost.
It really is. If a person can't find your business on Google, it's going to be difficult to generate that business. A lot of people either use Google Maps or Apple Maps to find most destinations. And if you're not on those platforms, it's as if you don't exist. And it's like, sure, you'll be able to bring in some foot traffic from people who see your sign while walking by,
Yeah.
but massive 24/7 visibility happens online.
I would put keywords like I'm sad, redirect to my cannabis shop. Or where do I find good food? Redirect to my cannabis shop. Like I would just, no keyword is off limits, Abraham. Like absolutely. What would you do, Justin? Like, I mean, what would be your redirect keyword?
But you have to pay for that, don't you? Like if you, and then you're in high competition. If you're not very specific, it's probably very
Broad
not cost
strokes.
effective.
Well, you don't want
Unless
to be
it's
too
unless it's
specific.
natural, so it's bouncing, back and forth off of, various platforms that keep promoting it. That's where I think. Am I right in that?
Do they charge by keyword?
There's different ways, right? So there's paid search and then there's organic search. Paid search is where you're basically paying, call it $1 for every time that somebody searches for a specific keyword and then clicks on your link that pops up for that keyword. Whereas organic is, how do you essentially earn that for free without having to pay cash? Instead, you pay in time and your investment of time into building a foundation on your website that is set up so that it's not only indexed and easy to read by search engines, but also by the end consumer.
I still think like every time I want like something to eat and I don't know what I want, I just put food near me. But most of the time it's dispensary near me. That's what
I think there's little tricks though, right? Like you could put, though, if you really thought that was an important keyword, which you might not, but you might put something about food and eating on one of your pages or one of your primary pages that people would actually see. And then isn't there some algorithm where also if people click on you and they stay on you for a longer time, like you earn more visibility points versus if they click
Justin's
back immediately.
Trying to figure out the internet. He wants to know where he can find the internet and the cloud, pretty much. Where's the cloud?
People obviously already know all of this. I'm an amateur, like less than amateur. But
you're on the right track. We're talking bounce rates. It's definitely one of the variables that Google uses, even though they might claim to not use those variables.
Wow, Justin, you're getting pretty good at talking tech. I'm very impressed with you right now.
No, I should know a lot more considering how long, I've had my business in San Francisco for so many years and then have a business here. So I should really know much more than I do. I'm
surprised that you were as successful as you are with the lack of knowledge that you have. You're welcome.
Who, me? Because I'm early in the game always. That's what helps.
Justin makes me text him the link to the podcast because he doesn't know where to get the link from that I already emailed him. And it's just like, he texts me your address again. I'm like, just go back in the chat. And he's like, no. So for him to be a successful recommending physician in multiple markets and still have a thriving practice and not knowing how to retrieve an address from your text thread, I'm just very impressed with you, Justin. And Tokyo's right up your alley. It's getting busier and busier. I'm dying just picturing you on the side streets of Tokyo outside of a hotel, causing all kinds of.
Tokyo's an impressive city. Not only is it's massive. I mean, it dwarfs New York City in size, dwarfs it.
Are they Canada friendly?
No, not at all.
Not even all. This is horrible. This is like
that's
really
how you get
bad.
Tokyo.
He's like talking about cannabis on the streets of Tokyo.
But it's also one of the most highly organized, clean cities, and it's actually very quiet as well for such a massive city. It's unbelievable.
Well, I mean, it's like 7 something in the morning almost, and it's not as bustling as I thought it would be.
No, you can go to areas that are bustling. We went to, for example, this crosswalk where it's famous for being the busiest crosswalk in the world. And you have thousands of people crossing in every single direction, right? So there's people this way and this way and this way and this way, all at once. And
can you get a time-lapse video? Can you like post up on the corner and just like film it and then we can time-lapse it?
I'm sure you could do anything. We actually, interestingly, we were walking across, we walked across a few times, and there was someone.
He's just
they were,
going
they were
back and forth, Abraham, on the streets. Like, this is my trip to
well, we
Tokyo.
we
I crossed
crossed
so
from
many
different
streets.
directions, right? You want to
Yeah.
experience it from a few different directions. But there were these they were probably young, like late teenage Japanese kids who were filming something. They ran in the middle of the intersection during the middle, set up a school desk, and one of the
Yeah.
kids sat down like he was working at his school desk, and they were filming it though with everyone walking by.
It's probably a
craziness.
TikTok. Justin doesn't
It
have
could be.
TikTok, but
It could be.
our podcast has a TikTok, and I've made more TikToks of Justin. He has no idea the content that I put out about him, videos I've taken that he had no idea. Him
That's
eating
why.
a sandwich
That's why I
with,
do
like,
okay, right, with
conviction.
SEO. That's my
Yeah.
SEO key. Is I actually have all these little names of me like out there in TikTok that I don't
He
know
thinks
about.
he doesn't have a social media presence, but he's got a following. He has got a cult following. So I think it's really neat that you're taking a collaborative amount of information and insight from the actual like public, but also from different, I wouldn't say I don't believe in influencers, to be honest with you. It's kind of like a weird concept to me, but I do believe that there are trusted and valuable sources of information in cannabis. Like Normal is one, FL Can for Florida is one, where they have no motives. You're similar in that aspect, that you are only motivated by the success of patients being able to utilize your site for their well-being. And I've asked a lot of
Not
guests,
just patients, because it's recreational, but
right,
people,
exactly,
users of marijuana.
consumers. But like, I've asked this of other guests, why do you give a shit like that? Like, seriously, you're not getting much out of it. It's not, you're not going to be able to retire one day on this. Maybe you will, but like, what made you want to help people and not so much your pocket?
It's the right thing to do.
I
There's
love that answer.
a lot of ways to make money. Not everything has to be focused around money, and luckily I know how to make money in many different ways that it allows me to be able to give back without expectation, which, funny enough, comes back tenfold. And then I make even more money doing well by doing good, and vice versa. So it's something that I enjoy doing. I've been doing it for free before anybody paid. The only reason we even decided to monetize this was because our accountants told us that this was an expensive hobby and that we
Yep.
can no longer write this off. And so we needed to figure out a business model. And that's what prompted our journey, was how do we make money helping people that we've already been helping? And it grew naturally, organically, in ways that like I truly never expected.
So Abraham, I mean, you fill a valuable niche here. And I feel like if you continue on this trajectory and keep kind of growing and have more and more people using you as a resource, both to communicate with one another, like in Reddit, but also as businesses to be able to find one another, I think you're going to grow exponentially. And you'll go from 30,000 to a couple hundred to in the millions, and then somebody is going to want to acquire you, and it's going to, they're going to offer you, $100 million for your company in 5 years from now. What are you going to do at that point? Because that would change everything.
Would you sell?
It hasn't been our first acquisition offer. We've
I'm
had
just saying, everything's for sale.
3 acquisition offers. I think if we found the right partner, we'd be able to help us grow and scale and do the right things. And again, aligns with the values and mission that we have. We are always open to opportunities to hold hands with other people who are doing the things that we are doing. And I certainly welcome that.
I think it's good because you could take a lot of like small pointers from some of the like 501(c)(3)s or nonprofits out there that try to get the regulation information out to the patients, but then deciphering that language is very difficult. So if, like, from what I've seen on there, you've got information like Q&A stuff, you've got recipes and what you can do with your products, or in Florida, obviously your medicine. Do you ever think about maybe if you were to segregate it out by market and then have, almost like the Florida Cannabis Community.org, Illinois Cannabis Community.org, almost like Normal does with theirs, but actually for money? and specific?
We tried that when we only had Facebook groups and we didn't have like a website or a business. We had groups for each individual state. What we learned, which is probably the same painful lesson that a lot of other multi-state operators have learned, is that dilution is a very real thing. I can only learn and know so much about every market and provide people as much value in those markets. And the more that we expanded, the less that I knew about what was going on in Maryland or Pennsylvania or Missouri. And so as we were growing and expanding, we very quickly realized that we were at a fork in the road of whether we wanted to focus on the quantity of people that we were serving or the quality of help that we were offering. And we decided to go with the latter because it was easier to manage and focus what we already knew and stay in our lane, as opposed to try and expand and do everything and be everything to everybody and then end up being nothing to everyone. And it was a hard decision for us at first, but I think now we provide exponentially more value to the core people that we serve today, instead of trying to cater to everybody, which becomes super difficult in such a diverse community.
Well, you could definitely probably monetize that, because you've got a very good website where, it's user friendly. It's got the information that people actually want, when they're looking for it. And you can go and you can search, how do I make pot brownies? But what you've got on there is like a curated amount of content that's relevant. And that's what's important, relevant to the person that's looking at it. I mean, Pinterest has recipes on how to make cannabis lollipops. And yes, I've made cannabis lollipops. Thank you for the recipe. But it didn't walk me through like a decarboxylation process. That was a whole different Pinterest I had to go to. So I do like that it's all encompassing there. And I love the fact that you have non-company specific cannabis branded merch, because that has been like the dream. I came up with an idea many years ago, when I first got into cannabis, of a brand. Did nothing with it except bought the domain. And I'm waiting one day, because I feel like there's not a cannabis non-company related.
What's the domain?
I'm not going to tell you because I don't want anybody to take it. Some people that are really close to me know it. I've already got the logo. I've got the whole image and everything, but I was going to make products that were supporting the cannabis space, and also clothing and merch. It had nothing to do, all of the extras, non-weed related. It's all related to weed, but I'm not selling weed. And it was going to, just more like a luxury brand. So I'm hoping he'll let me advertise on his site, and I can sell like rolling trays and stuff that are super swanky. Geez, Justin.
Let's do it. We've got a Shopify store, and we sell a bunch of stuff there, and I'll show you how to leverage AI to create some of those designs for the merch, which is what we've been doing recently.
I love that. And I love the fact that you're supporting podcasts that talk about cannabis as well, because I wasn't sure if you knew that you were on cannabis.
Are you going to tell all of your community to tune into this podcast episode?
Ooh,
I sure will. It's been a while, funny enough, since I've been on like a show or podcast. I used to run and operate our own show. We haven't done an episode in a while because of the amount of work that goes into creating a show and doing all that. So kudos for all the hard work that you guys do. I'm excited to share this with our team so that they can catch up, check in, see what's new, and hear from me, which is something that they don't normally do now that I don't participate in the groups every single day.
This is going to be good for them. They're going to see like this, the softer side of the head guy in charge. I think it's nice.
Indeed. It's a whole vibe. They're going to love it.
Yeah.
Do people,
go ahead, Justin. Yeah,
sorry, we were like dueling. People communicate in real time on your platform?
Ooh, that's a good question. Do you have a live chat?
We do not have a live chat, but people do communicate in real time. If there's a post that goes up, like typically within minutes, the juicier the post, the faster that people will respond. And then we know how to prompt and get conversations going these days that do get people a bit more involved. But say, for example, like if we want to mobilize people and have them do something, like we have that ability to rally people and get them to support awesome causes. Like we, through our
That's good.
community in Illinois, like we gathered people together to help add more conditions to the medical program. We gathered them to help make the medical program permanent. We used the power of the voice of the communities to communicate with state reps to help us influence and change the laws so that it could become more diverse and allow for other operators in the space to be able to enter the market. And interestingly enough, because we've been around from the start, we've seen it go from only a couple of licenses to a couple of groups to now there's hundreds of stores, and we played a very small role in that, which for me, like, that's more than enough to get me excited. I was at the party, we showed up, we did things that were cool with other people, and I'm really proud of all the things that we were able to accomplish with a wide group of people.
That's actually, you affected change, like you made things happen, and that's admirable, because lawmakers want to hear from their constituents, not from big companies that decided just to dabble in their market because there was dollar signs behind their constituents, their population. So you're actually representing or helping to represent the people that are going to be affected by the changes that they make in the Capitol. So that's important. It's not just small things. That's a big deal, is to be able to affect, the outcome of a legislative session by, getting the community together quickly. That's the big part, because stoners don't always wake up on time. They don't always go out and vote either. That's a truth story. We talk about it, but like actually getting out to vote, that's like a big deal, and Judge Judy is on it for. So like, I hate to say it about my people, but like it can be very difficult to want to get them to give a shit and get out, speak up, refuse to put up, stand up, whatever they need to do. The up part can be a little different for those stoners of us. Justin,
a lot of work, but it's very rewarding, and we've been able to organize tens of thousands of people, which has allowed us to, in effect, change legislation in many ways that has allowed more people to obtain access to cannabis, which is our primary goal.
Huge.
How do you think your community would feel about adding conditions of female orgasmic disorder?
Oh, okay. You might not listen to our every episode, Abraham, and I do apologize for my co-host, but we had a woman on not too long ago, 2 episodes ago, that is an orgasmologist and studies the female orgasm dysfunction, and
has a PhD, or almost has a PhD.
Well, I mean,
nearly.
she used to be the mayor and of like Lake of oh my gosh, I'm drawing a blank. It was, oh my gosh, whatever. She was the vice mayor, she was the mayor, she was on the county commission. Then she decided to go into studying disorders with female orgasms, and it was an
and it's publishing papers on it, scientific
conducting studies with women and finding actually cannabis is helping those who suffer from this disorder. Could be from trauma. There's a lot of actual medical basis behind it, and she's getting information that none of us even like had an idea about. But that's where his question's coming from. So go ahead and ask your question again, because he had no baseline. You just slapped him in the face with an orgasm talk, and that's difficult for Abraham. Okay, go ahead. One more time.
Okay, so how would your community feel? So you said, adding other conditions, which of course brought me to that. And I think that, since there are many women that suffer from sexual dysfunction, from trauma, or various
allegedly,
or very other reasons, whatever the reason is, it seems that marijuana makes a huge difference for them. And so shedding light, on this as a condition, I think might allow many women to see it. Just like men, like, wow, there's something called Cialis or Viagra that I could use. All of a sudden women will see, oh, well, there's actually other people like me.
How difficult is it? Like,
she's reining me in. Thank you. I needed
I'm
that.
saying, like, Justin's premise behind it is actually very noble, because it seems like there are a large amount of women that were getting, over this dysfunction that they had by the use of cannabis, but trying to convince a lawmaker to add this very controversial or very specific, classification of medical disorder onto the list. How difficult do you think that would be to go and add additional items on there that maybe aren't as, I guess, widespread or well-known?
Politically correct.
Orgasm. Sorry, but
it's
I
not
think
easy.
you blindsided him. Sorry.
But it is possible. I think if anything, the more specific you are with the condition, the more important it is. Because oftentimes, like for example, you mentioned comparing that type of specific issue to something like chronic pain. Chronic pain is something that is a condition that gets approved in almost every state that ultimately ends up going rec. And while most people can simply get a card and say, oh, I have chronic pain, I think that doesn't do it justice from a medical standpoint, because you're not addressing the core issue. And then it becomes difficult to then try and go back to your doctor and say, hey, this is my specific issue, when you've already labeled yourself as chronic pain. And in the world of medicine, believe it or not, like having the proper and the correct diagnosis is super important. It can change the entire trajectory of your treatment and therefore your actual overall outcomes. And so going to the state of Illinois and telling them, hey, you guys need to add these specific conditions, there's a process of how you go about it. Part of that process involves submitting a petition and getting signatures and getting testimonials of people who suffer from that condition so that they can help you build your story, build your case. Why is it important to one person? Why is it important to thousands of people? And how does this ultimately hit home for the representatives that you're trying to work with to sponsor this bill and legislation?
He handled that question way too good. Because it's actually true. I mean, providing a heartbeat and a story behind a request for the lawmakers, especially with cannabis, because they just got tasked with like cannabis the day that we decided to task them with it. They didn't ask for that. Many don't even make it their platform. It's mostly ancillary to whatever their constituents want. So you have to provide that story and that, that heartbeat, that representative that decides to speak up, because you're not going to be able to go to them and say, please add female orgasm dysfunction onto the approved list, because they're going to look at you and be like, why would we do that? Because you don't have one. And so all of that. And that's exactly what I would say if I was them. So it's almost like reading the room and picking your audience and placing the proper people in front of them. I would never pick Justin to go and represent the female anatomy in any legislative session in the world ever.
He needs to show up with 200 women who suffer from this issue so that they
can actually be arranged.
advocate.
Don't think he won't. Don't think he won't. Justin will fly with a stable of women. And I say that in the polite sense, not like he's a pimp sense. But if he has to, he'll have a flock, behind him. And he's a doctor. So like he knows all types of women. But I think Justin's already put in like the hard legwork of helping the program. If you show back up in Tallahassee, I would just stay away from Tallahassee.
Probably a good idea, right?
You should go to the nation's capital. You should go to Washington, D.C., where you haven't made a name yet, and like you can go and disrupt. Is that what you think is next for you? Is national type of cannabis change, or are you still gonna, like you said before, localized, focus on the core roots of your program?
National is tough. I think when you play at a national level, it's a different game, different people, different rules. And I think the bigger it is, the harder it is to change, the longer it takes. And so I think that the best change starts with you, and it starts local. And if I can change the ideas and perceptions of the people around me, which is what I've practiced doing for the last 10 years, you can see that compounding effect start to expand like a ripple in the water. And what I've seen is our advocacy efforts, our contents that we've created has helped create awareness at a scale that it has allowed an industry to grow and develop and be one of the nation's leading cannabis markets.
True story.
Illinois is one of the largest, most profitable, most expanded, most equitable to date in the entire nation. And I don't take credit for all of that, but we played a very tiny role in helping that snowball move in order to get the momentum that it has gotten to become the avalanche of success that it has been today.
Does it make you feel kind of good to be part of the inception and the original like implementation of a program? Like, because
Oh yeah, we help tens of
no one.
thousands of people live better lives with cannabis. Like if that's the single thing that I accomplished, my job is done. I help people. I help people live better lives. I help people improve their financial and their health through cannabis. And I think that's the best thing that I can say that I accomplished in this space. So I feel like I already won.
Well, I think you did have too. And I think our listeners are really going to like enjoy hearing this kind of grassroots startup that you managed to make a big success in your market and some of the surrounding markets, because that's something where it's very difficult for people to grasp how to enter the market. Or if they're trying to dabble in the market, how to get that outlet out there to the right resources so that they can go and acquire some new clients or go and tell people we're Canada friendly. Banking obviously is great, real estate and different companies like Tim Gunther and his, compliance stuff, because we've used him since day one. So I like that guy. I hate compliance. But I think that's really good. And I think that what you're doing is beneficial for not just your market, but also inspirational to the people that are benefiting from, all of the resources that you provide them. So go ahead and plug and talk about whatever your company or yourself is doing next to our listeners, and tell them where we can, if they want to advertise with you, where they can find you, how they can reach you, all of that.
The cannabiscommunity.org is the best place to find us and connect with us. We're super active on Facebook as well as LinkedIn, and we invite people to come check us out, learn about cannabis, explore our merch, or just chat with us. We're very easy to talk to. We love cannabis, and together we think that we can continue to expand this mission.
That's great. We'll link the cannabiscommunity.org website and all of your socials into the episode, and people can just find them quickly and easily. And we hope that all of your wonderful community gets to listen to this show and they get to hear how awesome you are. And we hope Justin doesn't get arrested on the streets of Tokyo talking about an illegal substance at 7 o'clock in the morning.
Luckily, I have the headphones on, so nobody can hear anything except for what I say out loud.
But your headphones are on.
Right, so they can only hear what I'm saying. They can't hear what you're saying.
Yeah, but you're horrible with technology. So what if I've been able to be heard the whole time and we're talking about weed? You're going to be arrested. I have to figure out how to get you out of Tokyo jail.
Luckily, all they hear is Justin talking about orgasms.
Yeah, exactly. I feel like that's kind of worse because, if we just segregate out what you've said today, it's weed and orgasms. And I'm fairly certain the Japanese people are a little bit more buttoned up and polite.
Yes.
But you have a wonderful day because it's just now starting. I'm
taking a bullet train today to Mount Fuji.
That sounds fake as fuck, but sounds like fun.
But you know what I did? You know what I did yesterday? It was interesting.
You walked across a crosswalk like 6.
No, that wasn't yesterday. Yesterday. Yesterday, I saw unbelievably long. It was over 3.5 hour production of Harry Potter and the Cursed Child in person. I saw this. I didn't understand a single word of the play.
Of course not.
However, I realized that I was in trouble during intermission, which was already, an hour, like 2 hours in, right? And I read a synopsis on Wikipedia. Thank you, Wikipedia. So I finally understood it. But I will say that despite not understanding a single word that they were saying, it was the most incredible, well done stage production. It was over the top that I'll probably ever see in my life. Like, you can't believe the production value of
they
this.
Aimed high, didn't they, for the world's longest movie to act out in person? How many?
No, this is not even a movie. I don't think it has not been ever released except for as a Broadway production.
Oh, but still, it's not a quick story.
No, it was so long, and in fact, I read that they cut out 1.5 hours of content to make it more palatable to the viewers. which
Well,
thank God they
thank you
did
for
that.
that. Yes, yes, we do appreciate it.
And then you'll appreciate this. My next stop, which I had to rush to because I was running late. This was for my daughters, right? There, I went to a capybara cafe, capybara and kitten cafe.
Oh,
No,
that's
I kid you not.
adorable.
We'll post that, right? We'll post some pictures of capybaras
I
from this
gotta see
cafe.
it to believe it. No pictures, never happened. Sorry, no
I
photos.
I petted a capybara yesterday. Believe it or
Can
not.
you describe what a capybara is to our listeners, just in case?
It's the largest rodent in the world. It kind of looks like
Like a
if you
really
combine,
fat guinea pig.
yeah, a fat guinea pig, but they're right, but they're
No.
not fluffy. They're kind of more rounded nose, and
Yeah.
they're actually aquatic, believe it or not. So like you see them, I've seen them in the beaches of Brazil, and
So
the
they're like
waves wash down,
swimming
and they're like all these
large-
capybaras sitting there in the ocean.
large swimming rats, everybody. Okay.
Yeah, they don't have
Had a
tails. They're
little tea
really.
party with large,
That's right. That's right though. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, they swim and they're kind of like,
I also a few days ago we went to an otter cafe. An otter
okay.
cafe.
Otters are my favorite animal, and you know that.
You
Justin,
can't
that's
you
not even
can't
fair.
you can't do weed in Tokyo, but you can go to an otter and capybara cafe. I kid you
Dude,
not.
that's like the
That's-
dream.
That's
Otters are my
top-notch. I'm
favorite
not gonna lie.
animal. I love otters. They're my favorite animal.
We
And-
gotta legalize otters here.
No, we should legalize. I'm not sure if that's like a violation of like PETA or whatever to have a tea party with an otter.
You gotta call Tim for
Will.
compliance.
Okay.
I will say
yeah.
that one of them bit my daughter's toe.
Okay, so
Yeah.
that's fine. That
True
means
story.
that the free will of the otter is fine. So if you could get me like an otter souvenir, that would be ideal.
I'll get you how about an autograph?
An autograph of who?
Yeah,
Of whom?
autograph.
The
No, an
manager at the
autograph.
hotel that hates you for broadcasting on his
No, you
sidewalk.
don't. You're not. You're
An
missing that.
Americans.
An autograph.
I know, I heard you. I'm not gonna take the low-hanging fruit. I know the little punny action that you're doing, and I'm not
Yeah.
gonna stand for it.
Well, you look
This is a
utterly
reputable
lovely
show.
today.
Thank you. You were utterly sweet. All right. Thank you again, Abraham, for joining us. This is Cynthia Brewer
And
signing
putting
off.
up with us, yes.
And putting up with it. Yeah, for sure.
And as
Appreciate
always,
having me.
Yes, you were great. And we would love to have you back on to talk about anything else that you do in the future. If you want to use this as an outlet to get to the masses, use us. So thank you again. This is Cynthia Brewer signing off for the Marijuana Mind. We will talk to you late and early next week, still from Tokyo, and my wonderful co-host, Konnichiwa.
konnichiwa.
That's the only word I know. And arigato.
It's a good one. Yeah, you actually, I learned you have to say arigato gozaimasu if you're being formal. You could say
Well,
arigato
I'm
to
not in
me.
Tokyo, so I say it the way I want to.
That's true. Yeah, I picked up a few words here, and there's a few important words, but that's
And
one
you've
of them.
got a lot of attention, just so the watchers on YouTube can see how many people have been interested. I really thought they
Yes.
were going to crowd around him
Yes,
with
they
cameras.
actually need my tables back that I borrowed, so I have to
Okay.
go. Keeping it
Okay.
keeping it green as always. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Davis. Bye.
Thank you all. Bye.